It's working now.
Hey everyone, welcome to our first live discussion of One Piece, the Netflix show.
Yeah.
I am Chris Navashinsky, in case you didn't know, but you probably do. And I am joined with Fantasy Awash, Laura. Thank you so much for joining me. Um, Laura's a little under the weather, but I appreciate her coming on here and discussing One Piece with
I
me.
could never let my booktube bestie down. Never, ever. We're hooked now to our live streams. Committed.
So hey Dem, welcome. Um, so Laura, first question I have for you. You watched One Piece. This is your first experience to One Piece. My
It
first
is.
experience to One Piece. We never watched the manga anime, or we never read the books.
Nope.
So when you watched when you watched this first episode, what was your thought? How did you feel about it? You don't even have to rate it if you don't want to. You could just like say
Um,
how you felt.
so I had no real expectation, just because of the fact that I knew nothing about it. All I knew was that it was pirate satire, which I'm here for anything satirical. I really love satire. And that the main character was stretchy. Like those are the two things that I knew, which don't really relate all that much to each other in terms of knowledge going into the episode. But I found parts of it really enjoyable, and I felt like it hit more of a stride near the end of the episode. But of course, like a lot of first episodes kind of take that time to build things up. And I've never really watched an adaptation of manga before. I've watched anime and I'm used to kind of that formatting. So it was interesting seeing how they interpreted some of the characters aesthetically. So I thought they made some good choices in terms of stuff like that. Overall, I thought it was a good first episode, but it didn't blow me out of the water. I'm waiting. I feel like it's going to come. I'm just not like I'm not into it. I'm just not like the most into it yet. How about you?
Um, yeah. So there was, I think there was a lot of like appeal. There's definitely a lot of eye candy on visual way
Yeah.
they showed off the show. There's a lot of things that are just like off the wall and bizarre, from like costuming and just like aesthetic, and trying to get an idea of, the kind of time period One Piece would probably fall into the real world. That's kind of how I
Yeah.
view things, because it
Mhm.
has that real world kind of feel, and there was a little bit of the some modern mixed in with like
Yeah.
during like pirate times of the Renaissance, kind of feel.
Right.
So I um I think I remember when I watched the first episode, I immediately wanted to kind of go into the second episode. So I think it was enough for me to feel like I didn't get enough from the first episode, but I liked it to want to go on, kind of thing. Like I felt like I didn't get as much as I wanted to from that first episode, but
Mhm.
I can. It's the episode where they're establishing the characters for people like us, you and me, that
Yeah.
never read the anime or um, anything like that, so we don't know who these characters are. And
Mhm.
I think they do a good job with introduction,
I do
with
too. Yeah.
kind of how we can kind of grasp what these characters are like.
Yeah, and I will say I also really enjoyed the wanted posters. I thought that those were fun as ways to introduce certain characters, even though a lot of the people on the wanted posters kind of aren't there for long, which I mean makes sense if you're thinking about it in terms of who would be on a wanted poster. They're probably not going to be in the story for a very long time. But I liked that they're very clear of what time things are happening in. So the beginning says 22 years ago. They also give you the location, which I really love. I'm someone that when I get a book or that has a map, I'm always referencing the map to know where I am. So I really appreciated that part. I liked then with Luffy when he was younger, it referenced back saying 10 years ago and it gave you the location once again. So I think that they're doing a good job of establishing the world, which I appreciate. I mean, for people that have watched our other live chats, we've talked about Wheel of Time, right? And I feel like Wheel of Time really suffered with world establishment. So because there are maps that people can reference and be like, it would take this long to get from X to Y. In this show, though, we're kind of just being given names, but we're not being given any indicators as to how long it would take to get from place to place, which I honestly prefer because they're having to condense so many of the manga into a singular episode or into a singular season. So I almost prefer not having a direct reference of being like, oh, that's unrealistic versus thinking they could sail there in, a day or two. Like, I don't know. It's fine. So, but
Absolutely.
I do think also going into this, you have to be open to a bit of an absurdist plot. And that is working, I feel, for the show.
Yeah, I think the absurdities totally matches what you expect with anime. It
Mm-hmm.
is that little bit of that over the top, and I think it comes off really well. I think the actors do a really good job, all in all, on being animated themselves in kind of with their facial expressions, or if they're like the more stoic kind of figures like Zoro and Nami, who are a little more mellow.
Yeah.
I think it was just something I kind of knew from just visual pictures of seeing One Piece and seeing what the anime is about. I am curious if anybody in the comments has watched the anime or have read the books. What do you think of the interpretation of that
Yeah.
of this
Do
like
you feel it's
initial
appropriately done?
scene? And I'm also kind of curious if what played out that we saw in episode 1 is actually in like the manga as well too, if it is an actual story. Um, so I guess we'll go into right into the scenes, kind of hit by play by play. That's kind of how Laura and I kind of interpreted Wheel of Time. Obviously, this is going to be different. We're just going to have to kind of go by how we felt the scene worked,
Yeah.
and that's it. So
Maybe
it
after
opens,
this is done, we'll read the manga or we'll watch the anime
yeah,
and we can do compare
or
and
like
contrast.
an episode of the manga, yeah, or the
Yeah,
anime.
exactly.
So the prologue kind of opens up with we have the pirate Gold Roger. He is being executed, and last thing he does is he identifies that he has hidden this fantastic treasure called the One Piece, which causes a big uproar in
I
the
wrote down the
courtyard.
quote because I liked it, and it was, "Wealth, fame, power, free yourselves, take to the seas, my treasure is yours to find." I thought that was a fun
Yes.
introduction. It sets up the scene really well to say, like, "This is gonna be a treasure hunt, and have at it." Like, I thought that was a really fun introduction.
And I think that was like a really quick way to really establish pretty much everything. We know now our main character's motivation. We know all the other pirates' motivation. So we don't need like anytime there's a new pirate introduced, we don't have to go through that every time. We already
Yeah.
know what everybody's motivation is now.
Yes.
And Luffy gets to establish that. And when we get officially into our open scene with Luffy, I love this little monologue he has with the
Bird.
pelican. Yeah,
Yeah.
where he's just like, and he states, his passion and his dream is like, I'm going to be king of the pirates. And
Mhm.
um, I, this actor, I think, just portrays this like optimism,
Yeah. It's
kind of,
believable.
yeah, kind of charismatic, like the dreamer, kind of uh, persona. And you just kind of dig him right away. You
Yeah.
want to know what this kid is about. And I think just him, just like kind of thing. Just kind of he takes things matter of factly. Like his boat is sinking. He's just like very intuitive to what to do.
Mhm.
Doesn't seem like he's like worried about things a lot. Just
Yep.
kind of like those initial impressions.
I I laughed at the mutiny line to the bird when the bird flew
Bird.
away. I was like, "Okay, I like that," because I love anything sarcastic if it's done correctly. So I thought that was a good introduction to his character. Um, so beyond that, like from that scene, you get into the Alvida scene, and my one issue, like major issue with the show is the fight scenes. I feel like they go on a bit too long, and I get that that's part of the absurdist element, but for me, it's just the characters are interesting, so I'd rather have more character time than fighting time, especially for characters that aren't going to be around for very long, which is like Alvida was there and then wasn't. So I don't know if she's going to come back somehow, like if she's just swimming in the ocean to land or something, because all we see is that she gets knocked off the ship, right? There's no real conclusion to that. But yeah, that for me, that was a little much. But one of the things I thought was very funny in the episode and I resonate with quite deeply is the fact that Luffy always wants food, because I am someone that needs fed regularly. And if I'm not fed regularly, I get very upset. So I greatly appreciated the fact that this kid is like motivated by food more than anything else. And that made me very, very
That,
happy.
that's what I had for this scene too. I said food over safety and precaution, because he's just
Yeah.
like loudly looking for food, and here we meet another probably mainstay into the show is Kobe.
Kobe. What
Um,
did you think of Kobe?
so I think these two characters just have that total contrast feel. Kobe is like worried, upset about everything. He's like everything like he is like has to be thought out, and
Yeah.
then he's like panics and overthinks, and it causes him to like constantly be in this like constant state of worry, where we have like happy go lucky Luffy, who's just like, you know what, I'm hungry, what do you got,
Yeah.
and he's like making noise and stuff in
Mhm.
his like, and Kobe's like, will you be quiet, and we get the impression that Kobe's been kind of a slave to um,
Alvida.
Almeida for a while, and is not treated very well. And
Do you think it's
um,
more of a slave, or do you think it's the fact that this kid just lacks all self-confidence?
oh, absolutely. I think there is a lack of self confidence, and I mean, it's been beaten probably out of him because of the pirates and his situation. I don't know if it was always like that for Kobe. Maybe we'll get like a backstory sometime in future episodes if they kind of go into his backstory prior to being
Yeah.
captive to Alvida. I wonder if it was just like kind of, I think, and Dan's point here, I wonder if Alvida was kind of just like an introduction, kind of like the
Yeah, I don't
easy
know.
pirate, easy to defeat pirate. I mean,
Yeah.
maybe he's not going to be around unless maybe she and Kobe have a more confrontation, maybe when Kobe's a little more confident in his own self, which
So,
I'm
yeah,
assuming might be something that would happen for him.
I think
Right.
I'm curious if that's gonna be an arc that happens, because I have a hard time resonating with characters that have zero self-confidence. Like it's one of those things that I've always been the person that stands up for the bully, and I encourage people to stand up for themselves. So I have a really hard time with characters like Kobe, just because I'm like, you have a voice, like try to use it, please. Or try to better yourself in this situation. So I am thinking possibly what we're gonna see is an arc of him gaining that confidence, especially with how he leaves things with Luffy at the end of the episode. So it'll be interesting to see if that is a character growth situation that we do end up getting to see, which I hope it is, because it would be a little one dimensional and flat. I feel like if it just stays where we are right now. So my hope going forward is that we see a really positive development in the Kobe character.
And then from here, uh, Luffy explains to Kobe that not all pirates are bad, and we
Yeah.
get our first flashback scene
Flashback.
here with a young Luffy, and he is desperate to join the crew of Shanks.
Shanks, yeah.
And uh,
I like
Shanks, of course,
Shanks.
I love Shanks. Yeah,
Yeah.
right off the bat, I knew he was just going to be fun. You can tell there's a different type of code on Shanks's crew.
Yep.
They're all having fun. They're all still about the kind of pirate thing about life and uh, celebration and
Yes.
booze and all the things that bring them happiness and you could tell that
Mhm.
they still love the hunting for loot and all that. But there's a I think there's obviously a code for Shanks that maybe we'll
Mhm.
find out later on what that is. And um, so Luffy, thinking that he needs to be tough, he kind of cuts himself. I'm
Sure
not
does.
sure if that's made the impact that I was expected for me, but um,
I was
it
watching
showed
it with my mother who audibly gasped. So, yes, it seems like it does have that effect, at least for some audience members.
that. But I did like the little scenes with Shanks, and I think it's tough because we don't know too much about that relationship quite yet.
Yeah. I agree
It
with
seems
Dan,
like he's
though.
kind of an orphanish kind of feel to
Yeah.
Luffy, but yeah.
I agree with Dan, and the reason I say this is because I feel that they really miscast young Luffy, because the fact that our older Luffy very clearly has an accent and young Luffy has no accent whatsoever. And I'm like, this is a little issue for me because it's like a
Mhm.
severe continuity problem. I'm like, by the time that you're this kid's age, like your accent is pretty much somewhat established. So, it just seemed a little bit off, but I really liked Shanks. I thought that it was interesting to kind of lay that groundwork that not everyone is the same here, despite the fact that they're going for similar goals of what they can acquire. And obviously, we see very early on that that box he's carrying is very important. And that box then comes into play later in the episode. Um, but Alvita, one of the things we skipped over is that she asks if someone is Zorro, and
Mhm.
mentions Zorro, like that the topic of conversation. So we're given this potential introduction to we like anticipate a character is coming. So I liked that part because then I was looking out throughout the rest of the episode. I was like, who's gonna be Zorro?
Yeah.
So I thought that was fun to do as well.
And then we come back. Monkey confronts Avienda, and he explains to I think I just called her Avienda
You
from.
sure did, Alvita. We're
But
playing
anyway,
our live
yeah,
streams here, guys.
yeah. But I think this was very interesting that Luffy was kind of like the voice for Kobe here,
Yeah.
saying, he doesn't want to go. He can do whatever he wants, and
Mhm.
this enrages her, and they have their fight, and we get that little shout from Luffy. I think this is supposed to be a signature thing that
I
he
think it
does.
is. From photos
Um,
I've seen of people's thumbnails for One Piece, it's of him screaming, so I
Screaming, yeah.
anticipate this is something that is inherent to the character, but
Yeah.
I could be
And we
wrong.
get the Gumo Gumo no or whatever it is, and
Yes,
then
exactly.
he winds up and hits her into the ocean. So
And the ship
that's
is
where that
now on
anime
fire.
takes it. And their ship's on fire. So we don't
Yeah,
really crew
it's going
unknown.
really well. Exactly. But we
So
then do meet our Zorro character,
yeah.
which I thought was I liked the look of the like I thought that this show did a really good job with sets and costuming, like you mentioned. I enjoyed that. Based on the few images that I've seen of the comics, it seemed very or the manga, excuse me, not comics, manga, seemed very accurate. So I appreciated that. And I liked we got a new place name, which was Six's Island. We hear of this thing called the Baroque works for the first time, which obviously you based on the exchange that these two are having, you realize this is something that's definitely going to come back into play at some point later on. And the introduction of Zorro I thought was fine. have another fight scene, which that was fine. But I like the aesthetic of Zorro a lot. I really like the look of his character. In terms of all the looks, he's probably my favorite so far.
They did a lot of. I noticed with the camera, they do a lot of like pan shots of him, the
Yeah.
close-ups, it's very like that Asian-esque samurai kind of feel to it.
Mhm.
And I appreciate they did a different aesthetic to his fight scenes
Yeah.
as compared to somebody a little more chaotic like Luffy.
Like Luffy, yeah.
And I think that worked really well. Just those
Mhm.
little like close-up shots of his face, his eyes just kind of like slowly opening up.
Yeah.
I've always been a fan of like samurai movies anyway, those old uh, fighting martial art movies, and
Yeah.
so and I think that's what they went with, and I think it really worked here. In the I just like the I think I was immediately drawn to Zoro right from the start. I think his
Yeah.
just the stoic, I like that calmness of him, but yeah, I think it was a good introduction to this character as well.
I think it
Um,
sets up the basis too that he's not someone that's easily bought, which is I think important is going to be important for his character. I mean, I think that that was kind of reinforced a few times throughout this episode. So I'm curious if that's something that's constantly reinforced with his character, or if they're really just trying to lay that groundwork in the first episode and be like, no, he's a man of character. And we don't know at this point that he's a pirate hunter. So that's interesting. But I am curious to see where the Zorro character is going for sure.
Absolutely.
It
And
had
then
the
we
purple
go.
brain fruit.
Yeah, what's that?
I called it the purple brain fruit before
Oh, the
knowing that
purple
it
brain
was
fruit,
the devil fruit
the
gum.
devil's fruit,
Yeah, I
gum fruit.
wrote purple brain fruit in my notes here. Just I was like, that is the weirdest looking fruit I've ever seen. And we have this interaction, right? That once again I think is a really good Shank scene. And I'm hoping we get more of him. Like I'm not sure
Yeah,
if we're
same.
going to. Uh, but I hope that we do because I think that he's a really good grounding for parts of the story.
And one of the foreshadowings is he is wearing the straw hat that Luffy is wearing
Yeah.
as an older um, teenager there.
Yeah.
So apparently, at some point, either there's going to be a fallout, or like something tragic might happen to.
I'm assuming it's going to be tragic.
I'm assuming it's going to be tragic too.
Probably tragic.
but but I love this. There's again, we get this whole non-violent code that Shanks has. He's even offering the drink
Yeah.
to the other pirates, but and all in the end, he just mops up. This makes Luffy mad, and then he discovers that Shanks discovers that Luffy ate the gum gum fruit, and just ends with that "What have you done?" kind of thing.
Right.
Is there
And
a repercussion to eating the
yeah.
fruit that is going to hit him later on?
And
Kind of
it's
thing.
interesting too, right? That we're seeing in this moment that young Luffy is like, why aren't you standing up for yourselves? And then older Luffy is kind of doing that for Kobe.
Yeah.
He is taking that upon himself. So it's one of those things that maybe he hasn't learned that lesson in the sense that like not everything needs to be confrontational, or he's learned that it's appropriate for specific moments. So I am curious to see how that characteristic is going to play out for Luffy.
And I think this next scene too, with Luffy asking Kobe, what do you want to be? What do you want to do? And Kobe having those self doubts. That's like the first time we kind of see like
Yeah.
angry Luffy. He's like angry that Kobe can't, like you were talking about earlier. He doesn't stand up for himself. He doesn't talk. He doesn't talk with confidence
Yeah.
about what he wants to do. He smacks him. And
Which
it's like,
really caught me off guard. I honestly was surprised. I was like, that seemed out of nowhere and slightly inappropriate. But yeah.
yeah, yeah. And then from there we meet our third possible main crew here, and that is Nami. And she wakes up sort of feeling. Looks like she's been out to sea for a while, and she's calling for help. And we learn this is all a ruse, and she overtakes this little small pirate ship and gets them off the crew, and she sets sail in a very
Yeah.
confident way.
I thought that this happened a little too easily, but it was one of those moments that I was like, "This is meant to be absurdist, so I'm gonna roll with this and let this happen." But it's
Yeah,
a
it
good
was.
establishment for her character. You get very
Yeah.
quickly, like, what she's about.
Mhm. So yeah, definitely more than meets the eye to Nami. Um, and then from there, we get to what I think is my personal favorite scene of this whole episode, and it's this restaurant scene
Yeah.
because one, all three of our characters are there. Granted, they don't know each other; they're all separate, doing their own separate things. It does focus more on Zoro at this point,
Mhm.
who he's being offered these rice balls by this little girl, and we meet Hel Nepo, a very
What a name.
very eccentric character. This is what I was
He
talking
is.
about, where he is like the epitome of an anime character. His
Oh, yeah.
I've never seen a mouth get that big.
I know. I was looking at him and I was like, "He looks cartoonish, like, he cannot
Yeah.
be real." But he
And I
was.
thought, man, this is anime right here. Is this
Yes.
this guy?
Also,
I mean,
Luffy needing more food in this scene, all for it.
yeah.
Like, man is hungry, and
I
I
I
am so
wonder, and
there.
I wonder if it's a thing from the Gum Gum fruit. I wonder if this is
Yeah,
why he's.
maybe. In order to sustain his elasticity, he needs to constantly be fed. I don't know. But did you notice, and I thought this was kind of funny that the guy's name is Captain Morgan, like the rum.
Rum.
It's like,
Yeah,
it
yeah.
cannot be coincidental, like, that has to be planned.
So we get this little fight scene. Do you think this fight scene was a little better than some of the other ones? I think this one was.
A
I
bit
like this one
better.
a little bit more.
I found
Yeah,
that this one felt maybe a little bit more appropriate in the sense of what was happening in the scene and who we're kind of learning Zoro to be at this point. But Helmeppo is so unlikable from the second you look at him
oh
that you want him to fight
yeah.
him because
He
you're
he's
like,
got a
come
definite,
on.
yeah, yeah. He's a definite punchable face. I mean,
Exact 100%, like 100%. It's one of those few
I mean
times
that's
when you watch something and you're like, someone needs to slap this person. Yeah. And so therefore,
credit to the actor, because I mean the laugh, the obnoxiousness of him.
yeah,
Yeah, it's like, oh
it's a
man,
lot. So yeah, exactly, down 100%. But
yeah.
I mean, I like this scene for the fact that we're getting to know Zoro's character more and more. He's obviously someone that is very set to his morals. He has a code that he lives by. And Luffy's just analyzing people and going like, that's gonna work for my crew that
Yeah,
no one wants to be a part of, which I thought was
yeah,
also funny. Like the fact that he's taking all these mental notes and he's like, all these people are definitely gonna want to be part of my crew, and everyone is like, absolutely not.
yeah.
Uh, so yeah,
Um,
overall I enjoyed this scene too.
yeah, this was hands down my just my favorite scene. I think it was just everybody doing their own kind of thing here. And then yes, we meet Captain Morgan. If you know Masters of the Universe, he looks like Trap Draw because he's got like a half metal
Yeah,
thing going on. I don't even know if he needs that. I wonder if it's just like a vanity thing, as we
I
see in
don't
his
know
office.
because
He's very
Zoro
into
says
himself.
later. Zoro says later in the episode, right, that like every part of him is a weapon, basically. So I don't know if it's just embedded armor that it's protection, but it made me think of like a TMJ mouth guard gone really, really wrong. I was like, this is what happens when you don't wear your mouth guard. You have to have like a metal implant on your face. But yeah,
But I think this scene was a little funny with him like having a lot of respect for Zoro and like slaps his son around,
yeah.
and uh, the way he does whimpering, Helmeppo. I mean, it's
Mhm.
just so insufferable. It's like early Joffrey kind of vibes
So
from this.
it's funny you mentioned that because the character that I thought of with him came from House of the Dragon, and it was Aegon.
Oh yeah, good. That's another good now. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
even better. Yeah,
Alicent and the king, Jaehaerys, not
yeah,
Jaehaerys,
the
Jaehaerys' son.
oldest one, right? The heir one. I forget his name.
Sorry,
The one who's going to be heir, the one who's technically gets the
the
throne.
one that is now, yeah, that they crowned king. Yeah, but like the younger version of him, he reminds me of him so much. I was like, oh
He
god, they're
does.
both that same face that you just like want to just take them and like shove them away because they're so awful. But and yeah, I mean, I could definitely see someone who's in a militaristic position looking at that being their son and thinking, God, what did I do wrong or what did I do to deserve this? So I appreciated that as well. I thought it was good.
So yeah, we go from that into where Zoro decides he will take the yard and just hang out there. He gets teased a little bit by Helmepo saying that you're going to be out there for the rest of your life. And then out of the grate comes Luffy just talking to him and just like, pepping him up and saying, what do you want to do? What do you
Yep.
want to be? And we learned that from this, we learned that Zoro makes a promise to be a great swordsman. And we don't know who he made that promise to yet, but we imagine that'll be coming up in a future episode.
Well,
So,
something we skipped though was that Nami knocked out that guy at the bar
yeah,
and stole his uniform.
and stole
Yeah.
his outfit. And
Mhm.
she is now on a mission for something in like the scrolls library kind of thing. We
Yeah.
don't know. She's very quick thinking, is what I found out right away. I mean,
Yeah.
that female guard comes in. She had a story right away. She didn't pause. She didn't like hesitate.
Yeah.
She went right into like, this is why I'm down here. Do you need, do you need the orders from Morgan to clarify that I'm down here for a reason, kind
Right.
of thing. And then until she runs into the guard that she stole the clothes from, and then and then we find out she can, kick butt, and just got to kill her quarterstaff there, and there's she's very self reliant, as we very figured out. What are
Yeah.
what are your initial thoughts on Nami here up to this point?
So, like I said, I thought her boat scene happened a little too easily. But I liked the bar scene because it seemed okay, we're planning something here. Her fight scenes are a little much for me, like that whole scene in the room when the guard comes back in, he's like, "Oh, you're the chick from the bar." I was like, "Okay, like we're gonna get more fight scenes, fine, whatever." But I liked her dynamic with Luffy. I thought it was funny, which I appreciated. And then I liked her dynamic when she was speaking to Morgan. I agree. It seems that she is quick on her feet. So that's always something that I appreciate in a character, that they can kind of weasel in and out of a situation. But she's a thief, right? Thieves are, I believe, usually very smart. Like if you're successful at being a thief, you kind of have to be smart. You have to be able to plan, coordinate things, be quick on your feet. And I think that she exemplifies those things. So I'm glad that she's there. I'm also glad that there is a female of our main group of protagonists. So it's good to have her part of the group.
Yeah, a good balance there for sure. Then we get a scene. Well, after Luffy frees Zoro, we get, this was totally unexpected, but we get Helmeppo swinging
So
Zoro's
naked.
sword.
So naked. Yeah.
But I think it was very fitting for the character. I just didn't expect that kind of, I was like, God, how old is this kid?
This is exactly why he reminds me of Aegon. Aegon was having like a moment with himself
yeah,
over King's Landing, and I'm like, they are the same.
yeah.
It's the same person. But
But
yeah,
yeah, and he's a simpering, when in the end he's a coward,
yeah.
and grabs the teddy bear and you're gonna kill me, kind of thing, and all that. And that's all
Good
we see.
imagery for making him seem like they're infantilizing him in the best way possible.
um so they get back to Morgan's office, and from there the alarms sound, and they're looking around. They find them entrance to the map pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Luffy was by sheer luck kind of thing.
Yes.
And she begins cracking the safe. They can't get the safe open, and he utilizes his power and pulls it off, and they go flying through the window. I
Yeah.
guess I guess he can soft land or feather fall, or because that was a
Well,
pretty long drop. But
you got a safe to break your landing, so one might say it is a safe way to land. So there you go.
yeah, so I guess because he's made of rubber, he can act like a buoyancy kind of thing.
I
I was like,
guess. I
okay.
don't
I
really
mean,
know.
I was just taking everything. I wasn't trying to be too serious about the
Yeah,
moment. It didn't really bother me. And then we get a very long courtyard battle. I feel like this went on for a while, and
too
maybe
long.
this show is meant to be action um, over more of like the dialogue.
I
I
don't know because
or
I've
maybe
seen
it will
both.
maybe it will slow down. Maybe as we watch further episodes. But I
I've
felt like this
seen
will
people
work out.
talking about One Piece in the sense that they were comparing it to Wheel of Time. I think it was Bookborn specifically, and she was saying that One Piece is so great at establishing all of their characters and giving them plot. And they're doing it basically with a similar number of episodes to Wheel of Time. And they're just so different in how they've gone about this. So I'm wondering if the first episode is kind of actiony to pull in people that maybe like that more and aren't familiar with the manga or the anime. And for people that are familiar with the manga and the anime, they're like, we know that they'll probably carry over into the second episode anyway. So I'm curious to see if that's going to continue. My hope is that if they do, I assume that there's always going to be some kind of fighting because there's pirates and pirates notoriously, super peaceful people. So that I anticipate is going to carry through for the rest of the show, but I'm hoping that there's more of a balance between plot and that. And I think now that they're together, that there probably will be because we're not having to go to all these different places, right, in each episode and establish what each person is doing in order for them to come to the collective because they now are the collective. I think that we'll see
But
Kobe possibly.
Laura, but Laura, they're not a crew. Not a
They're
crew.
not a crew. No, they're not. I laughed at that part too when he was like, "Me
I
and my crew, not a
I
crew."
I I laugh at that every time.
Yeah,
I was like, nope, not
he's
a crew.
innocent, but in the best possible ways because it's likable, but it's not. It's naive, but not in a way that's frustrating or annoying. It's naive in the sense that you're like, "Oh, that's endearing."
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I but yeah, they get out and they get back to their boat, and we do get that scene, that departing scene with Kobe. Kind of
Before that,
gives him
though, we get Helmeppo's haircut.
we get Homelpus haircut. Yes,
Yeah,
it's
which I
all
laughed at. I
half
thought that was
half
funny.
cut, half stringy. It's a big mess.
It
I
sure is.
saw I had to look up in like an anime image of Helmeppo, and yeah, it's did a really good job with just casting that character and um, getting that look down because he does have that bob, and it's pretty funny.
Mhm.
But Kobe gets his little moment there where he does punch Helmeppo just so they can take off,
Yeah.
and again, Luffy has his little moment. Again, everyone's stating they're not not a part of his crew, and then we get
No.
two cutaway scenes of
Yeah.
probably what's going to be in the future for this
Yes.
season.
Big
We
importance.
Yep, we get the big honcho marine dude on a like bulldog
Yes.
kind of ship.
Very like if Darth Vader was a pirate at sea ship, like that's basically what I'm thinking. Yeah.
Yeah, and we get a interesting phone that's a snail, and I thought that was
Is that like
pretty
a play on
interesting.
snail mail, but it's like a telephone? I don't
The
really know,
telephone.
but
That's kind of what I was thinking. It was like
yeah.
some sort of snail mail phone thing, and we learned that he got a call about a pirate in a straw hat, and
Yes.
that really made a resonating uh, thought for Gerb, I believe his name is Gerb, and
Mhm.
so we'll see how that plays out.
Yes.
And then the spy from the restaurant scene also comes in and reports to what looks like to be a Manana clown. and
Super creepy looking. Like
yeah,
super
very
creepy
super
looking.
creepy looking with blue pink tails. So possibly the next adversary, Luffy.
So I think he's the main adversary, at least for the first season. Like that's my thought. I'm also
Maybe, yeah, maybe.
I'm curious also if the straw hat reference is into Shanks or if it's to
Mm,
Luffy. So I don't know. I'm curious to see how that plays out. But the buggy scene, like, what a look! Just- I think it's accurate from the manga because I saw people commenting on the fact that they did a really good job with Buggy. So I'm assuming that that's what that meant. But he is maniacal looking and really creepy looking. I'm not a clown fan.
no,
So,
I'm
yeah.
not a clown fan either.
Yeah.
It's kind of a phobia. So I think when you get like this kind of kooky, even when they're like this kind of kooky, they're like just creepy as shit. And
Yeah.
I think definitely probably you might be right. He might be an adversary for this whole season kind of thing. So
Mhm. 'Cause, yeah, I don't know how
so
long things go in the manga, right? Because that's kind of
right,
the
yeah,
question that I have is, like, I think that there's certain arcs that can take a few books
books.
probably, that's what I would think, but I don't know. So I'm curious, like, because I think I read that they did I'm losing the exact number now, but it was a substantial number of volumes for the first season. So I was like, okay, they're obviously making their way through stuff. So I don't know if Buggy is supposed to be our antagonist for several volumes of the manga, or it's just they deal with him really quickly, like Alvida. I don't know. But I think because they've
Yeah.
left him to the end of the episode, it's gonna be a bigger thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And judging from the pictures, I feel like I think there's like 7 or 8 of his
There's
crew,
9 episodes, I think.
9 episodes.
Yeah.
And I think when I'm talking, and then also just from One Piece One Piece pictures I've seen of the anime and all that, there's like what 9 or 10 crew members.
Oh, is
So
there?
yeah, so I wonder if we're getting that many
Hmm.
crew members like all in this
No.
season, maybe like half and half, or
I kinda hope no. Just for my personal preference, I would prefer it start small, get to know, and then add in people,
yeah,
unless that's how it works in the manga. I mean, if that's what happens and then they follow that, then that's I can't really fault that because they're
yeah,
doing an adaptation correctly at that point. But
right,
I hope that we get to learn more about each of these individual characters. Like, how did Nami become a thief? Like, what prompted her to become a thief? Why does Luffy have that hat? Like, did he end up joining Shanks's crew after that event? I assume that he had to. How did Zoro become a pirate hunter? Like, why does this Baroque group want him? So, and also learning about that group. And then I'm assuming we'll learn more about Buggy and the Marine, So
right,
already that's like a solid group of people that
yeah.
you're gonna be learning a lot about.
And it leaves a lot of questions, which I appreciate. Like you said, we got flashbacks of Shanks and Luffy. Something tells me that will still continue.
Yeah, I think so.
My hope is we will get flashbacks of like or of the other characters as well,
Yeah.
that are integrated into this uh his little band here for right now. And we want to know more about Zoro and Nami and
Yeah.
whoever else is coming up. But yeah, same thing. I hope if they have the whole crew, maybe keep it to like 4 or something
Yeah.
for the season 1, maybe introduce the rest in season 2.
Yeah.
And it's tough because you don't, like you said, you don't know how many books. Like I wonder how many books it took just to tell like first episode. Was it only one,
Right.
one volume, or was it, a couple
Yeah, I
volumes
don't
just to
know. If someone
tell
does
the
know,
story?
please let us know in the comments if you're watching it on a rewatch or the comments live if you know. But It's always so interesting, right, when you look at other shows that are adaptations as to when they plan to introduce characters based from the books. And some shows jump in from the beginning and they're like, these are all the characters and we'll get to them. And other shows kind of, it's a slower build. The one that for some reason is coming to my mind right now, where you met all of them really early on, is Outlander, because that's kind of how the POV of the character was. Like, she's thrown into this situation where all of these people are strangers and around her, and they did that with the audience too. And I'm like, okay, this makes sense because we're kind of meant to be seeing it from her POV. But in this show, we're not really following a main POV, right? I feel like Luffy is supposed to be our main protagonist, but they're doing it in a way that they're divvying up screen time and they're intersecting them all enough that I don't feel like he's substantially further ahead than the
Mhm.
others. I feel like it's fairly balanced.
Yeah, I mean, I think because we got non-Luffy scenes with Nami and Zoro,
Yeah.
that we will probably continue to get those, and
Yeah.
hopefully, like I said, maybe some backstory for these two characters. I mean,
Mhm.
there's a reason why Zoro's wants to become a great swordsman, and then
Yeah.
what's the reasoning behind Nami's uh, hunt for
Stealing.
this map?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then same with what's his name? Got it. The pink haired dude.
Kobe?
Drawing. Yeah, thank you, Kobe. Um, I wonder if we'll see more of them.
I think we will. That's at least my feeling, is that it might not be every episode, but I have a feeling that they will at least have another encounter before the end of the season. I would be
Yeah,
surprised because I feel like almost if they didn't do that, then what was even the point of having him in this episode?
right. Oh no, I think he will be in some time. I'm just wondering if he's going to be like a regular,
Recurring, yeah.
yeah, recurring kind of character to where
Yeah.
we get a little bit about him. So
I'll be curious if that's the case. I mean, I like I said earlier, I hope if they do that, that it is a character arc that is growth rather than stagnation. Like the kind of muttering to like get their speech out type thing for me gets old really quickly. So I want to see him stick to what he tells Luffy at the end of the episode. Like he wants to help people. So it's like, okay, be forthright in that, go do it, be steadfast, and let's see that storyline. But not if it's gonna be like him being kind of bumbling around and awkward for a whole season. I'm not interested in that.
oh no, absolutely. And I think he did get a little bit of a voice in that last
Yeah.
thing where he even said to Luffy, he goes, "Next time we meet, we might be enemies." And I
But
loved
right
when,
now we're friends.
yes, I love that line, and it was like, "Aw," you know.
Yeah.
But I think it did. I think in this case, it just hit really well. You know, it didn't come off too cheesy because that is
No.
Luffy. That is what Luffy is about. He's just like meeting, having companionship, and I think he thirsts a little bit for that. I think it's kind of like my indication with Luffy, just kind of like first uh, initial perspective of Luffy is I think he likes having that companionship of
Oh,
people.
definitely. The guy's
Yeah, I
talking to
don't think he
birds.
likes being alone. What's
Oh,
that?
he's talking to birds, so he
Yeah.
definitely wants companionship more than anything else, I feel like, and a crew. But, for him, I feel like that can be one and the same.
But so I think we both agreed that I think Zoro was kind of like our favorite from the
Yeah,
Starfleet
he
series.
was. Tori, I'm really curious as to why you love Kobe. Is that looking back on it from the whole season perspective, or is that looking at it solely from the first episode? Because it's hard, right? Once we've watched something through fully, or we've read something through, our opinion on a character can change so much from when we're first introduced to them. So I'm always really curious when people say they love a particular character. I'm like, oh, was that from the get-go, or was that looking back on it with retrospection? I mean, I assume that this is because of the whole season. So that's kind of what I was going with, which is fine. I'm like, I'm happy because it's so boring, right? When everyone just loves the same character. Like, that's, I find that really, really dull. So when we can have an adaptation or a book or series where people naturally gravitate towards different characters, I feel like that's way more interesting. So I'm hoping that at the end of it, like, not that I'm saying, oh, I hope Zoro isn't my favorite at the end. It's that I'm hoping I feel more akin to other characters the way that I already do to Zoro's character. But yeah, I mean, the characters are all pretty great though, so that's good. Luffy, I loved Luffy too. Like, honestly, it was a pretty close call for me between him and Zoro because they offer such different things. And I really love a naive character that's lovable and not annoying.
There, there, and I had a friend very Luffy like, where he's just nothing bothered him, and I'm pretty easygoing myself, but I'm like,
How
I'm
does
like, okay,
nothing
well,
bother you ever?
but
Yeah.
like going to a movie with him was like really irksome because he was never on time. Like certain things, it's like, all right, let's go. You know, he's like, oh yeah, yeah, we can go now. And
Yeah.
it's like all like just life's easy going, you know, and all that. And I agree with Dan here. I think there's Luffy was also just like right out of the gate. And I think that's really something they had to probably achieve because he
Yeah.
is probably technically our main focused character.
Mhm.
And you know, getting together and banding these other, you know, people together. And I think having that, and I think it showed in Nami and Zoro that you know, he was like, you know, do what you want, go your own way, you know, and like
Yeah.
when he released Zoro in the courtyard and all that,
Mhm.
he's not pushing anybody to do anything they
And
don't
he's
want
very
to.
supportive. Like,
Yeah,
it's
and
so
he's very
funny
supportive.
when,
Yeah.
I laughed when they were in front of Captain Morgan, and he's like, "She's the best at being the worst of, the Marines." And I was like, he just genuinely, like, radiates positivity, and that's fun. Um, so yeah, I think it's curious. I will watch this, probably when we finish season 1 because I feel like once we're done this, I'm probably gonna wanna read the manga just to see how accurate things were and possibly watch the anime. I don't
Oh,
know.
yeah,
But
it's a process.
yeah,
It's
exactly.
gonna be a big thing, but I think it'll be I definitely think it'll be worth it. So would you say would you say you understand now why this series is so popular based on maybe
Yes
this first
and
episode?
no.
Or do you
I'm
need
not
more
fully
time?
there yet. I feel like I'm also not a big manga reader. Like, I just read my first manga last month, so but I have watched anime growing up. I watched Dragon Ball Z with my brother pretty religiously. So, and I like grew up on Sailor Moon. It was my absolute favorite. So, those types of things aren't new to me, but I think the satirical element is new to me in that setting. So, I'm curious to see what exactly it is that continues to pull people in because this is a very beloved series and I know people can get really passionate and really fiery about it. Not always in the best way, but I it's hard for me because I usually give a book 50 to 100 pages, like for a fantasy book, right? Because typically fantasy books are so long. And once we hit that 100-page mark, I genuinely know if this is going to be something that I'm really going to enjoy or if it's something that I'm not really going to enjoy. We're nowhere near that 50-page mark in my mind to a 100-page mark. I'm enjoying what I've seen so far, but would I say it's the greatest thing I've ever watched? No. Would I say that it's the worst? Absolutely not. So I'm excited for episode 2 and I'm excited to see where the season goes for sure. But I also don't have that connection to it the way that, people that have read it and watched the anime do. How about you?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Oh no, absolutely the same. I like I said earlier though, I think when when I got to the end, I was like, I felt like I needed more, so I was ready to watch the second episode. So I guess that's a good thing, or I don't know if it was like a good thing or a
Yeah.
bad thing, as I needed more. And I mean, you know me, I like epic, big, big
Oh, do
long
you?
stories. Do
I
I? I
had
don't
no
know.
idea about that.
But now this is actually I actually am reading manga, and I'm reading Vinland Saga, and I hear that one has an anime version as well, and I'm loving Vinland Saga, and I feel like the story is I feel like it's a little more slower pace. I'm in like volume 7, and they're pretty chunky too, so they're not like the
Oh, are they?
thin typical yeah. But I'm enjoying that. I think with One Piece, I can I can honestly see maybe the appeal why people are really loving this series, and I
Yeah.
think when as you and I continue on with this Netflix show, I think we might have that. I think we'll get that appreciation too.
I mean, I hope
Will
so.
we? And then we'll see when we get to the end. Will we be big fans? Like, oh,
Mhm.
I gotta get them read the manga now. And
I mean, the I was thinking about it earlier today. The adaptations for me that have been the most positively surprising are the ones that I wasn't expecting. And that ended up being the one that's really been the best for me over the last few years was Andor. Hands down
Hmm.
was Andor. I have a really bad itch in my throat, so I'm sorry. I keep coughing and my voice is going in and out. But I'm hoping that this ends up being a similar thing where it's I'm not going in with an expectation, and I think that that will help me appreciate it more, as opposed to like when we watched Wheel of Time, where I had a very clear expectation in my brain of okay, they need to hit these notes in order for me to feel like it was a success. And in this regard, I feel like I'm approaching it more so from the context of do I feel like we're getting proper character development and is the story fun because it's meant to be absurdist and satirical? And if it's hitting those notes, then I'll feel like it was a success. But I'll be interested to see when I get to the end of it too, if I read the manga and I feel differently.
Awesome. All right. Do you have any final thoughts, maybe to just this particular episode that you want to add that you didn't can think of? Do you have a rating for it, or
I'd say I'm like crying from
no? I
coffee.
know.
Uh, maybe like a 6.75 to a 7. But I tend to be pretty critical of a pilot. I feel like had we had more condensed fight scenes, it probably would have been a 7.5. How about you?
I was a 7.5 to 8, but that's me. I'm a little more or less like um it wanted me to I wanted more, and that's like I said, I want to watch the second episode because of that. So I don't know if it's like good or bad that I needed more. But I want to pick up the next episode. So um yeah.
I felt similar.
I'll-
I wanted to watch
yeah,
the next episode when we got to the end of it. And then was thinking, oh, okay, well, I should probably wait because we're going to be having our conversation next week. And I don't want to watch it now and then not have it fresh on my brain for next week.
yeah, yeah.
But I did feel like
I
it
was
was a positive reaction at the end of the episode that I did want to carry on watching it.
awesome. All right. Well, guys, we are ending a little quicker than normal on this episode because I went Lori to get some sleep and get her throat back and her voice. Again, thank you for joining me, Laura. Again, her channel is
Always.
Things Awash. Please check out her channel if you are not subscribed. But and thank you everybody to the comments for joining. I know it's a Sunday late night and Monday's coming up very soon, but we do thank you for joining us for our first discussion. I'm sure our talks will get a little lengthier
Most
when
likely when we have
we
a bit more meat to get into.
when
And
we have
also, if you're watching on a replay, let us know what you thought of the first episode because we definitely want to know. We like when people engage with us during these chats. See
absolutely. All right. Thanks again, and you guys have a good night, and we'll see you guys next
you
week.
next Sunday.
Bye,
Bye
guys.
all.